For a composer or a performer, registration is their colour palette. So a composer can be very detailed in the specific stops they wish the performer to use, or else they can use descriptive words for the organist to interpret. It's often helpful to think of the organ as an orchestra. It has most of the components of a good orchestra. It has the strings, it has the wind section, it has the brass in the form of the reeds. And this can be very helpful in how a composer notates a score. The most important thing is to clearly communicate to the organist what their piece should sound like. So the colour, the texture, the mood, the timbre and the atmosphere are all very important. The term registration relates to the choice of stops and therefore the prevailing sound at any one time. Usually it will be annotated at the beginning of a piece, either by the specific manual, so swell 8-foot strings, great flute, pedal 16 and 8-foot flute, or it can be specified by hand, so right hand 8-foot reed, left hand 8 and 4-foot flutes, or as a combination or a description, such as something like bright full to mixtures. Where there is to be a change of colour within the piece, this will then need to be specified later on. As we mentioned earlier, the stops are arranged over a number of divisions or manuals, and sometimes these occupy different physical spaces within the building. And this can be used to antiphonal effect. In terms of the manuals, smaller two-manual organs will have a swell and a grate. It's quite normal to specify the manual, but likewise, as with registration, it can be left up to the performer, who will be able to pick and choose as to what resources they have available and best suit the organ on which they're playing it. So on the organ, there are two ways to achieve a crescendo. The first is using the swell pedal, and this allows for expression within a similar dynamic range without changing the stops, so using the same registration like this. So as the swell box is controlled by a foot pedal, it's very difficult to use when both feet are very active, or when both feet are physically playing at the same time. It's therefore best to write musical hairpins where the feet are moving quite slowly in a single line, or it's just the hands playing, which will free the feet up to operate the swell pedal. The other way to achieve a change in dynamic on the organ is by adding and taking away stops. Stops can either be added by hand or by the pistons. Pistons allow for much more rapid changes of registration. The organ doesn't have a sustaining pedal, so arpeggiated writing is not particularly effective unless you indicate that the chord should be sustained, or you fill in some harmonies, sort of continuo style, with the other hand, like this. So the right hand on its own there would have sounded quite thin, but with the addition of the left hand chords, that was able to create the effect of a sustaining pedal. You obviously also can't use the sustaining pedal to help bridge the gap with big leaps. So you're always going to have that little bit of gap while you physically jump up. Likewise, sustaining chords, big legato chords, you can't rely on the sustaining pedal to help with that either. So organists will find themselves having to do all manner of finger substitution and sliding of thumbs to try and get the chords legato. So it may often be better just to thin the texture out to help the playability of big legato consecutive chords.